Okay, Kelly, we're ready to go.
Thank you so much, Angela. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Bar Talk on this March 22nd of 2021. Nice to virtually see all of you. I hope that you, like I, have been enjoying this warmer stretch of weather. It feels like spring is on its way, not just literally, but also metaphorically. I was personally pretty excited to hear that all adults over 16 will be eligible for vaccines in less than a month. And that's a definite ray of sunshine and of future hope for those of us who have not been. I mean, I've been pretty low on the priority list. My whole family has been. So I'm excited to hear that that might be coming up sometime soon. So welcome. We have with us today as our guest speaker, Judge French, who is the Chief Judge of Maine's District Court. Judge French was last here with us probably 4 or 5 months ago, and he was kind enough to be willing to come back on and give us an update on what's going on from the perspective of the District Court, and to answer any questions that anybody might have as to what's going on now or what's coming on down the line. If you have questions for Judge French, go ahead and stick them into chat, and either he will see them or Angela or I will grab them and offer them up to you, Judge, at an appropriate time. So with that said, Judge, thank you so much. Really appreciate you being here today and giving an update to our members, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. It's such an honor to be here, and I appreciate that you asked me to join you. I will note that I believe you have Justice Mullen next week, so if people could save the difficult questions for him, and I'll certainly cede any extra time I have so that you can provide questions for him next week. But nonetheless, the judicial branch just acknowledged the fact that we had been in the midst of protocols regarding the pandemic for just over a year. Last Friday, Justice Mead sent out a notice to everyone. And the thing that I've taken from that, because it's been quite a year, an extraordinary year, is how many changes there's been, not only in our personal lives, but in our professional lives. And every time I run into members of the bar and members of the bench, talk always reverts to the fact that we've been in this together and how we have done the best that we can and are holding on. And I appreciate everyone holding on and everyone's patience. I just wanted to take a moment to recognize that. Speaking of holding on, we have some good news from the judiciary. The governor has sworn in 4 new judges. You may have seen some of them around courthouses near you, but Robert Langner, Sarah Churchill, Jim Martimucci, and Sarah Gilbert were all sworn in by the governor. So they're involved in training, a training schedule that I set up. And part of that training is that they shadow and then sit in different courtrooms. So please, I tell them to introduce themselves if they're in a region where they're not familiar with the lawyers, but any lawyer should feel free to introduce themselves and say hello. The other big personnel move that I wanted to bring to everyone's attention is there's a new manager of operations in Portland. Manager of operations is the term really used for what previously was known as the clerk of courts in certain courthouses in Bangor, Portland, and in Region 1, York County. So Caitlin Kellner has joined us. So you can change your letters, but also, again, feel free to stop in and say hello to her. There have been a couple of amended pandemic management orders or new pandemic management orders that I know have gone into effect since we've been meeting or since I've had a chance to meet with you. One is PMO SJC 6, which has to deal with a pilot project for FEDs. And that amendment to the PMO says that in York, Ellsworth, and Farmington, and I think Portland actually as well, although I didn't write that down, there is a pilot project where at the initial call or the initial appearance of the parties, there'll be an opportunity to conduct mediation right then. So much as you would do if you were in person. And in some cases, they'll be able to go forward with hearings if the cases aren't resolved mediation. So in those jurisdictions, there's a pilot project. We also have a pilot project which was created by Pandemic Management Order SJC 12, which deals with small claims mediation. And as you know, we are not hearing small claims generally throughout the state, but this PMO, or this pilot project, which is taking place in the Portland District Court, allows the parties to participate in mediation by making a request. There's a court form which parties can pick up from the clerk or get online. They fill out that court form requesting mediation, mail it to the clerk, and provided there's no objection within 7 days, the matter will be scheduled for mediation. And then the mediation will take place either by Zoom or by telephone. And after the mediation, if it's resolved, the mediator will send that agreement to the court, and the court will enter it as a judgment. If they don't reach agreement, it doesn't hold any of the cases up. They won't lose their place in line, and they'll still be able to have a full small claims hearing in the event that they need to do that, and once those matters are before the court. I wanted to give you some numbers that I have regarding PC filings. It's just interesting. We had a recent meeting to discuss this. In 2020, there were 1,043 PC cases filed in the state. As of March 5th, March 5th, 2020, we had 245 PC cases. March 5th, 2021, we had 162. So they were down by 34% from the year previous as of March 5th. The other thing, as far as the family division goes, I want everyone to know that we're doing CASA training, which starts actually tomorrow. So we'll have some new volunteers trained for that role. And we're doing our GAL core training in March of this year as well, March 29th, next week, I think we're starting that. So we'll have new GALs trained, which is good news. The court recently changed its phased management plan with regard to the entry of courthouse from those that have traveled out of state. We had a couple changes recently. The most recent change, however, is that if someone has traveled from out of state, they can come into the courthouse if one of two things have occurred. One is if they're exempt because the governor has said that there's no requirement to quarantine from the state from which they've come. And the second thing is if they sign an acknowledgement that they have had their required number of vaccines. So if it's a 2-dose vaccine, then both vaccines. If it's 1 dose, only one, and that 14 days have passed. So that's a change that we have for those entering the courthouse. They won't be turned away if they can meet that. There was an update to the PMO SJC 10, which is regarding child protective proceedings. And that set forth which things are remote and which things will be in person. That came out. I think you actually talked about that, Kelly, at one of your last bar talks as well, but I want to make sure everyone was aware of that. I've had a question about when disclosure hearings will start. And I will let you know there's a planning group that the court has now that is looking at disclosures and small claims. We have received a lot of information from those members of the bar who are either engaged formally or informally in civil matters, who have some great ideas as far as moving forward and some proposals. So that is something which is being considered as we speak. And my expectation is that as there are more and more folks with vaccines, and with the numbers hopefully continuing to be on the decline, we'll be hearing more from the SJC regarding civil matters. With regard to the pilot project for FEDs, as I said, it's happening in Portland only right now. And the hope is that it will be so successful, or will be successful, and we can get some lessons learned from that it will be expanded to other courthouses. There's a lot of work actually required to make this happen, not only with clerks, but also with the cadres, who's the mediation section. And mediators are trying to make sure that they're available for FED cases and for FM cases. right now. So we're really, and all those things are done remotely, which on one hand gives them more time because they're not limited about the number of hours they can be in the courthouse. But it's also taking a little longer than all of us expected to do things remotely. So the availability of mediators really would drive this as well. But we'll see how it works in Portland, and we'll let you know. I think that's all I had for things that I wanted to pass on. I'm happy to answer any more questions or discuss anything else that the Bar Association wanted me to.
Judge Cheryl Cutliff had a similar question uh, as to the one that you just answered about small claims mediation and the pilot program. She asked, is that only available in Portland? And if so, are there plans to expand that to other courts?
And that's just, and I'm sorry, that's just what I was mentioning. So we're going to try it in Portland. If it's successful, it will be expanded. And we're just trying to make sure we have the resources to be able to do it. And we're not certain what resources it will take as far as the court goes. We don't know what by the way, the number of small claim cases that are pending are greater in Portland than any other jurisdiction. And the hope is that we will know, kind of be able to establish a rule of thumb about what percentage of cases folks are requesting to be able to have mediation. And we'll be able to judge things after the program has been in place. There are a couple fixed weeks now when that's going to occur. So we should have an answer about whether or not we're going to be able to expand that toward the end of April.
Thank you. And I was going to, later on when we talk about Justice Mead's State of the Judiciary speech, I was going to pass along some figures, but I'll pass along one right now relating to small claims. He says that pre-COVID, there would have been about 1,300 small claims cases pending at any given time. Right now, there's about 4,700 cases, small claims cases pending. So that's up about 3,400 cases. So it's quadrupled, really.
And we expect that there are a number of cases that aren't being filed because folks understand that the court isn't hearing those matters now. So once we do, and once the availability of conducting small claims matters changes, I expect those numbers will increase.
Well, that's a good point, that there's a backlog of unfiled cases across all case types, perhaps.
One of the things I'll also mention, it's probably not of interest to that many folks, but as you know, traffic violations or violations bureau cases continue to come into the court. And we had a pilot project, an informal pilot project of conducting those remotely, everyone participating by video. And there's some difficulty in scheduling that, of course, because when someone's given a summons, they're not required to give their email address or to otherwise be available or provide information so the court can contact them prior to scheduling a Zoom hearing. But having said that, last month, for the first time, we were able to keep the number of cases that are pending steady, which means the new cases that were come in, or at least that's the same number of cases as those that come in, we were able to address. So we've seen some progress in that front, which is promising for the use of some things virtually in the future.
Thank you, Judge. Folks, if you have other questions for Judge French about district court operations, or maybe you could throw him some of those hard questions you were saving up for Justice Mullen. If you have any questions, go ahead and do put them into chat. Judge, thank you. I know that this has been a tremendous amount of work this year for I'm sure all of the judges, but particularly you in your role as Chief Judge. So thank you for all of your efforts over the past year.
Thank you. Well, I know it has for everybody. And one of the things I don't want to take away from the difficulties that everyone's dealing with in their personal lives, but I would just ask you next time you speak to a clerk or a marshal to thank them as well. They've been on the front lines and have not been able to not be at the courthouse. And they're dealing with folks who have come into the courthouse who, as you know, are dealing with all the same difficulties we are, as well as the stress of their court case. And if someone has a gripe or a complaint or isn't in the best of moods, it's those folks that have had to face the brunt of that. So please thank and say hello to the marshals and clerks next time you're in the courthouse as well.
And not to mention the fact that because they've had to be there, they've been exposed to greater risks, certainly than those of us who are at home. You see that question, Judge, from Ben McCall?
I did. There's a question about 80K proceedings, and I know that I don't have an answer as far as when those filings will be able to, or when they will be allowed by the court. It is something, though, as with the civil cases that are on the agenda and on the forefront, there's the hope that we will be able to return to all case types. And I know that, as I said, there are a lot of planning groups that are out there and that are looking at these matters. And we continue to make great progress in addressing the priority cases, which we continue to do. So I don't have the answer specifically, but let me just follow up by saying, as far as the priority case types goes, that case filings are actually higher than you might expect with regard to family matters, and have been. We thought that there may have been a lull because of the inability to get into court early on when the pandemic first struck. But we are generally trying to get to and address those matters. One of the names of folks that I mentioned who had just became a judge is Rob Langer, who was a magistrate in Region 8 up in Aroostook and Northern Penobscot in Washington. So we're actually down a magistrate now as well, but we're hoping to make progress on the hiring of the magistrate shortly as well.
And then Judge Sonia Buck asked about foreclosure trials, and I suspect we may recognize your answer.
You probably will, although I can tell you specifically, there's a meeting tomorrow morning, which I'm participating in, looking at that specifically, and also looking at the effect of federal moratorium. So I have a better answer, which is tomorrow morning is when we'll be talking about it. I just didn't know when the answer as far as the change is going to take place.
Well, it is going to be an eventful 6 months or so, and we'll probably see the repercussions of this lasting well beyond that. And so, again, thank you for your time. Thank you to everybody for being here and listening to the judge. If you have follow-up questions, feel free to send them along. We'll make sure they get to the judge. Judge, please feel free to stick around if you'd like. You can see we're going to be going through some other things, but thank you very much for being here.
Thanks again for the invitation. And for those that I was able to see by video, it's always nice to see everybody. Have a great day.
All right, so that moves us on into the other updates we want to provide to you. As you can see there, we've already covered the eligibility timeline for vaccines. So go ahead and start making your appointments. If you're over 50, that eligibility I think starts tomorrow. I was talking to a friend who's over 50 who was able to go ahead and make their appointment, even though they're not eligible until tomorrow. So perhaps you will have luck with that as well. Good luck. Justice Meade delivered the State of the Judiciary. He did that in a recorded form to be provided to the legislature, so it was not live. You can find that on the actually on the front page of the judicial website, both in video form and text form. And I've just skimmed through the text version. I offered some of those case numbers, which I find very interesting. The most stark increase in case numbers are criminal cases. At the end of January 2020, so just over a year ago, there were about 17,000 criminal cases pending. As of the end of February of 2021, there is slightly over 27,000 criminal matters pending, so 10,000 more. So that is an enormous increase, even though the judiciary has been working hard to reduce that backlog. Civil cases are at 4,300 now, up from 3,000. Real estate is actually down 1,500 instead of 2,000. Evictions are up 1,700 instead of 1,300. And we already talked about small claims, 4,700 up from 1,300. I got to imagine, I mean, I'm certainly telling my clients that it's going to be a long time, because I only do civil litigation. It's going to be a long time before you see a trial. Difficult to tell when. But fortunately, most civil cases don't end up at trial anyway. Judge French talked about PMO 12 and the pilot project for small claims mediation. If any of you give that a try and have feedback on it and would like to share that on Bar Talk, please let me know. Or if you have feedback you'd like for us to pass along to the court. Angela, and let me just flag Administrative Week is coming up next week. Angela, over to you for an update from the association.
Thanks, Kelly, and good morning, everybody. It's nice to see you all. Please don't forget, we've got a lot of things going on. We're requesting nominations for the Blue Award. When this presentation is over, you can visit this slide and click on that link, Blue Award, and it'll take you to the criteria for that award. We'd like those in by April 16th. Judicial evaluations will be going on through the end of the month. If you have not done that, please take a moment to do so. In fact, tomorrow and Wednesday, we'll be providing testimony for 5 judges who have hearings this week. So it's really important to that process that we get feedback from you. And our Law Day contest is open through April 1st. And so if you know of some grade school or high school students that you could pass that information on to, that would be terrific. Next week, again, just a reminder, we'll have Justice Mullen joining us to talk about what's going on in the Superior Court. And Bar Counsel Julia Sheridan will join us at the beginning of April. And I'm going to move right into the practice tip, which is for me. And I know I'm not a practicing attorney, but there's an app called Focus at Will that provides personalized instrumental music that basically keeps your mind or helps your mind avoid distraction and habituation. And so basically what it does is it's personalized to you. You take a little quiz and it provides you the music that would help you, based on the answers to your questions, keep you focused on your work and increase your productivity. I have the app and I use it quite often, and I do think it helps me, because especially when I'm working at home and there's a lot going on and noises and stuff going on, it does keep me focused. So I suggest you give it a check. You can get it for free for a week. And that's all I have, Kelly.
Thank you, Angela. Our wellness tip is pretty complicated. Based on years of scientific study, we recommend you get outside and get away from the screen for a few minutes a day. It's gorgeous out there. I might grab my lunch and eat it outside. The gratitude is directly linked. So happy that spring is here. I want to thank all of you for being here with us today for Bar Talk. If you have suggestions for speakers that you would like to hear from, if you have ideas and you would like to be a speaker, I would love to talk to you. In particular, I would be interested in talking to folks who have done things like gone through Zoom mediations or Zoom depositions or Zoom trials and have tips for maximizing that. I think that would be an interesting topic. If you have discrete practice tips and would like to offer those up, we'd love to have those as well. Thank you all for being here today. I hope you have a great day. Happy spring, and we'll see you next week. Take care.